you took any amount of money, take $100 million in the year 1900 and invested in any currency in the world, you would have lost 100% of your money in every currency except for the dollar or maybe the pound. Every currency collapsed. The winner of every war in the 20th century was the United States. And so the winning currency loses 99.5% of its value. Everybody else, you lose everything. Now, if you put that money in gold, there's a 95% chance it would have been seized in the 100 years, because there's only a couple of cities on Earth, maybe Zurich or Geneva, where you wouldn't have had it stolen, and maybe then they still would have stolen it, you know, if you were the wrong citizen in the wrong country. If you were a Swiss citizen in Switzerland for the 100 years, you might have kept the gold. But, you know, Churchill seized the gold. Roosevelt seized the gold. If you'd lived in Germany, you would have had your gold seized multiple times. In Japan, they lost it 2 or 3 times. In Russia, you know, count the number of times. So there's nowhere on Earth where you could have kept your gold. And now you're stuck with, okay, well, where do you invest it? Land? Take $100 million worth of money and buy land in Florida. Tax bill is $2 million a year. If you buy property in Florida, it's 2% property tax a year. It gets assessed up every year. You have the ownership of the land for about 20 years before the government takes it back from you. You don't own your
plus the
your
maintenance
property
of the land. Right?
Yeah, plus the maintenance. So if you want to move money through time, how do you do it? You can't do it with the currency. The money is broken. The money was always broken. It's been broken for 100 years, losing 7 to 10% of its value. But in hyperinflating economies like Venezuela, Argentina, fill in the blank, the money loses 20, 30, 40% of its value a year, sometimes 80% of its value a year. Gold is a property you have to put in a vault. And if you have to put in a vault, then the counterparty, the bank, is able to hypothecate it and rehypothecate it, which means they basically sell 100 ounces of gold paper for every ounce of gold you hold, and they keep shorting it naked, and they hold the price down and manipulate the price. You can't hold your own gold. So ultimately, the problem with gold is holding money in gold over the course of 100 years is going to lose 85 to 90% of your wealth under the best of case. The other problem is you can't move money through space with gold. I need to move money through time and space. I need to hold it for 100 years, and I need to move it from here to Tokyo. If I want to move, you know, $1 billion of gold is like 30,000 pounds or something. You want to move a bunch of money through space, it's going to cost you 3 to 6 months and $5 million to move it once. If you want to move it through time, you're going to lose 80, 90% of your money through time, and it's going to be seized. So gold's a pretty expensive way to move money. Currency is an ineffective way to move money. Property is only good so long as the nation state that the property is in chooses to allow you to continue to possess it. But of course, the oldest story in the world is, oh, we lost the family farm because we couldn't pay the property taxes. You can hold the land. You know, buy 10,000 acres of land, someone moves in and sets up shop next to you, they incorporate a city, then they bring 50 people in the city, then they make themselves mayor, then they pass a property tax, then they annex your farm, then they give away free money to anybody that wants free housing in the city, then they double your property tax, you can't pay your property tax, then they seize the property because you can't pay the property tax. You buy $1 billion worth of property. If you want to create wealth, you borrow $1 billion and you buy $1 billion of property, and you start with $1 million of equity, a sliver of equity. And what you're doing is you're going short the currency and you're going long the property. So if I told you, let's go to Argentina. If I told you in Argentina the peso is going to go from 1 peso to the dollar, to 5 pesos to the dollar, to 10 pesos to the dollar, to 20 pesos to the dollar, to 40, to 80, to 100. The black market rate right now is 210 pesos to the dollar, 220. If I told you it was going to collapse from 1 to 220, and you had 20 years of notice, what's your best strategy? take your million pesos, convert it to dollars, and you're going to have 220 million pesos in 20 years. You're going to look rich. Better strategy is borrow 1,000,000 pesos, convert it to dollars.
Wow.
Best strategy would be mortgage your entire company in pesos, sell equity in your company in pesos, convert it all to dollars, and then get the dollars out of the country. Because if they're in the country, if the million pesos is converted to dollars in a bank in Argentina, then the government will basically pass a law, force your dollars to be converted back into pesos, devalue them. And I happen to have some experience with that because I actually had $1 million in Argentina during the last currency collapse. They converted it to pesos, they devalued it 10 to 1. A day later, I'd lost 90% of my money. So, simple idea, short the currency which is collapsing, go long property, and then get the property out of the country. Because the property in the country is also going to devalue, right? There's not a single currency in Africa, in South America, in Asia you would rather hold than the dollar right now. The Chinese don't even want to hold the CNY. They would all convert to the US dollar. How do you know that? Because there are capital controls. Every country that implements a capital control, making it illegal to convert their currency or move their capital out of the country, is signaling to you that their currency is weak, and that includes the Chinese currency. So that's one dynamic. You got 130 currencies floating in the world. There's probably only 2 or 3 that'll be left when the dust settles. You got the euro, the CNY, the USD. Everything else either gets pegged to those or it collapses into those. And then the second thing the world wants is it wants crypto property. It wants money to give to your grandchildren. I want to hold my money for 100 years, if not 1,000 years. The dollar won't work. The dollar is losing 2% of its value a month, which is horrific, and horrific over 36 months. It's catastrophic over 10 years, and people are getting smart enough to realize that that won't work. So the issue is, where do I put my long-term money? I need a savings account. So hence, this is where Bitcoin comes in. Bitcoin is the dominant crypto property network in the world. It's pretty much the only perfected digital property network the human race has created. It's a proven digital property. Everything else is a speculation that it may become property over time. Bitcoin is the success, and every like-kind competitor to Bitcoin has collapsed against it, such that Bitcoin is the 95% dominant network in this space. The dollar is clearly the dominant currency, and it wants to be the dominant digital currency. It is really the dominant digital currency as well, despite the fact that the U.S. government doesn't have, U.S. banks issuing them.